otro árbol muy antiguo, muy frondoso. Ujú.
Do you have any questions I might be able to answer?
Not right now, maybe. We're trying to figure out
About the history
The
of Álamo,
history,
because we're not from here, so we're just going around.
Well, this place was originally Spain. Okay, there's 5 missions here. Are you here long in San Antonio?
No, actually we're in Austin. So
Oh,
we
I
just
see.
came here today.
Where are you visiting from?
Brazil.
Welcome. Okay, and so, well, how this got started was 1821, Mexico gets independent from Spain. They have a big problem because nobody Mexican lives here. See, there's 6 million people in Mexico, but only about 6,000 Mexican citizens here. They're called Tejanos. Okay, well, they're right next door to the United States. And there's 18 million people in the United States. And an average American woman has 7 or 8 children. Now, there's no vaccinations, there's no antibiotics, so you only get to keep half your kids, but that still means the average American woman has 4 children. So there is a tidal wave of extra Americans pouring into Texas. Okay? That tidal wave of extra people is what we call the American frontier. So Mexico has a huge problem with Texas. It's filling up with Americans. So in 1821, well, I should point out, I'm 65. The average life expectancy back then wasn't even 40. Can I live to be 65 back then? Actually, I can. 4 out of 5 people are dead before the age of 60, but they didn't die because they got old, because they weren't. You don't get older faster back then. In fact, all your food's organic and you get a lot of exercise. So if you do live to 60, you're in better shape than we are usually. I'm 65. Now, that means if I'm here at the Alamo, I am older than the United States. I was 5 years old when the revolution broke out. I was 12 when we finally beat Cornwallis at Yorktown. I was in my 20s before there was an American Constitution. Things don't happen right away. So here's the deal. I'm 65, I'm here in Texas, 1836. 2 things happened when I was in my 20s that are gonna change this whole place, okay? One of which is this school teacher from Connecticut is gonna invent this simple device called cotton. Okay, now I grew up with linen and wool, now we have cotton, no big deal, but at the same time, over in England, the Scottish guy invents, named James Watt, perfects the steam engine. And the steam engine is going to kick off the Industrial Revolution. Now, when I was a kid, clothes were very expensive. Everything was done by hand. You had to pay for all that labor, so nobody had very many clothes. Right? You ever see cloth, how they weave it with foot pedals and everything else? If you hook that up to a steam engine, it does it all day long. And guess what kind of fiber works better than anything else? Cotton. So England has the world empire at that point. Okay, they machine-made cotton appears about 1820. It takes the world by storm. And clothes are very expensive, but this is cheap, it's colorful, it's comfortable, it irons. The whole world wants machine-made cotton. England has an empire to sell it to the whole world. That's where they get their cotton, American South. So starting about 1820, fastest way to $1 million is your own cotton plantation. Now, this is going to take over their whole economy more than anything else. And unfortunately for everybody, it's slave-grown cotton. So this is going to nail down slavery as the cornerstone of their economy. This is the way they describe it. So Mexico, 1821 gets independent, right? They're flooded with Americans. They don't know what to do. They can't stop them. They don't have military presence here. So they do the only thing they can do. They give Texas to Americans on the condition they become loyal Mexican citizens. Now, they don't just give it to anybody. They don't want riffraff like me. I don't have any money. They want wealthy guys who can develop it. Okay? There's a guy from New York. His name is Stephen Austin. And he owns lead mines in Missouri, so he's a rich guy. he is given a piece of Texas as big as the state of Texas.
Nice.
That's how fast this is. And within 10 years, all of Texas is given away, mostly to Americans who agree to become Mexican citizens. Okay, now, but we're the Constitution generation. I mean, we don't take the American Constitution for granted. We know it took centuries to get here. We're very proud of it. Mexico has a constitution very much like ours. It's called the Constitution of 1824. And our first flag is a Mexican flag with 1824. Okay. Now, if you are an American in Texas, you know that this is going to become the United States. You don't know how that's going to happen. Because the southern states, this is going to be a southern state. The United States is a very divided country from day one. We can't grow cotton in the north. That never happens there. Okay? And so we don't have slavery up there. So free states versus slave states, two very different economies. We don't like it. Okay? And so what happens is, if I come to Texas and become a Mexican citizen, I'm pretty confident. Look where it is. This is destined to be the United States. But we don't know how that's going to happen because the North won't let us in because they don't like us. Okay. So here we are, we're this Mexican citizens. Now, Mexico, when they give us the property on condition we become Mexican citizens, they're hoping three things are going to happen. Number one, they're going to hope that it is our interest to keep Americans out once we're here. Well, that doesn't happen very much because they can't, because we all have guns, and America's a very new country, and sure, we have slavery and we're very racist, but we don't have traditional rich and poor. It's not in our culture. I mean, my son could be Stephen Austin. Okay, he could be a rich guy too. Okay, so number one. Number two, they're kind of hoping we're going to trade with Mexico, Tampico and Veracruz. Well, most of our money's going to New Orleans. And number three, after 15 years, we had agreed to pay taxes. Okay, 1832. 1832, they actually sent legal tax collectors to a place called Anahuac. But down in Mexico, there's two main factions. There's those who want the Constitution, and you're a Federalista. Those who want a strong central government to start out Mexico, then you're a Centralista. Okay. Well, we're Federalistas here. We're all about the Mexican Constitution if we're citizens, but they're Centralist tax collectors, and we don't like them, so we kick them out. Now, this is called the Anahuac disturbances, and in the middle of this, there's a young 23-year-old lawyer, just arrived here from Alabama. His name is William Barrett Travis, and 4 years later, he's going to get famous here at the Alamo. So that's how it starts. Now, what kicks off the war finally, in 1834, Santa Anna becomes president. As a Federalista, he promises to protect the Constitution. But in a move very typical of Santa Anna, okay, in order, he switches sides and becomes a Centralista, abolishes the Constitution. When he does that in 1834, civil war breaks out all over Mexico, including here. We're Centralistas, okay? We're Federalistas. We want the Constitution. Because we're Americans, right? I mean, we grew up on the Constitution. We're very protective of our rights. Now, in 1835, Santa Anna is very busy fighting his fellow citizens down in Mexico to stay in power. Kills about 2,000 citizens, we think. Okay? He sends his own brother-in-law, Martin Perfecto de Paz, to this ruin. See, the reason the Mexican army comes here, under Spain, Texas had been about missions, right? Most of the Mexican Spanish citizens were living in these missions right here, okay? Now you have 30,000 Americans living in East Texas who are Mexican citizens, most of them, okay? So this is not really the center anymore, but it's the traditional capital. So what happens is, in 1835, 1,500 Mexican soldiers come here, which is a lot, plant the flag at this old mission, and say, guess what? We don't care if there's 30,000 Federalistas here, legal or otherwise. This is Mexico and Santa Anna's president. Is the story too long yet? Oh.
No, that's good.
Okay, now here's the deal. So what happens is they have to show they're doing something. Okay, now 40 miles east of here, there's a settlement of Americans who are Mexican citizens. It is called Gonzales. Okay, So just to show who's in charge, and they have a cannon about like this one, okay? And so just to show who's in charge and just to disarm the tensions, in the end, in September, when it's a little bit cooler, they send 100 mounted soldiers, go and get that cannon. Don't start a war, just forget it. Okay. When they came to get that cannon, that was the worst thing they could have done to the American settlers. See, we're all about the Constitution. And our First Amendment is free speech and religion. Our Second Amendment is still controversial today, the right to keep and bear arms. If you want to get my generation in 1836 furious, come and take our weapons. Okay. Now, what happens is we stall for time, we bury the cannon so nobody can find it, and we send for all our friends. And we all have guns, we're all Mexican citizens, but we're from America, and no one's clearly in charge. Those 100 guys are under orders not to start a war. We're not. So, of course, somebody opens fire, one Mexican soldier is shot and killed. The other 99 are under orders not to start a war. In fact, their commander is a Federalista like us, he's just under orders, so he turns around, comes back here and says, boss, we couldn't get it. Now, shots have been fired. And unfortunately for Mexico, there are people outside of Texas who very much want a war in Texas. Okay? This is going to be huge. Texas is an enormous place. And anyone with a brain knows that sooner or later this is going to be the United States. Now, at this time, a company springs up on Galveston Island, which is over by Houston. They're called McKinney & Williams. They have all the money in the world. They don't. We know who they were, but the people who back them do. So McKinney & Williams is going to pay for the war on our side. They're going to feed the 500-man Texas Army for 3 months. They're going to ship American volunteers out here, and they're even going to print the money for the new Texas Republic. So McKinney & Williams are backing this war, which has nothing at all to do with these guys. Now, what happens is the orders are, since the Mexican army has no, look, if you're coming up from Mexico, which is that way, and you're dealing with 30,000 people in East Texas, you don't come out here to this ruined mission on the edge of the prairie. Time has passed since we was by. Once you do, you cross the river 100 miles south of here. Okay, now, that is the gateway to Texas, a place called Alamo. The Spanish knew this, they actually told us in the 40s. So the main Texas Army, 500 men, led by McKinney & Williams, was waiting there. The orders are, there's 19 cannons that the Mexican Army left around these walls. Send them to where they're going to be. Now, the reason those guns are, the reason those guns were still here in February is because of the Scottish guy called James Grant. Is the story too long yet?
A little bit.
Okay.